Welcome back to Yehoshua's Daf Yomi Shiur, where the Daf continues daily until the complete revelation of Mashiach ben David. We'll be studying page 116b. The new Mishnah starts on the last line of 116a, so we'll start from there. Very bottom of the page, the Mishnah says, Kevas koiv shalevela hareze surah. Now we turn to 116b. Im yesh benosein tam, hareze surah kshera shian kamen trefa kamsa surah trefa shian kamen kshera kamsa muteres b'pnei shekanus b'me'eha. Okay. The Mishnah says at the bottom of 116a, the congealed milk in the stomach of the animal of a non-Jew and of an unslaughtered animal carcass is prohibited with regard to one who curdled milk by using the skin of the stomach of a kosher animal as a coagulant to make cheese, which may then have the taste of meat cooked in milk. And now we turn to 116b. And by the way, this is just, I'm reading the Talmud. This doesn't reflect my own opinion. I'm just reading the Mishnah in the Talmud. Okay, that said, let's continue. Im yesh b'nosein tam hareze surah kshera shian kamen trefa kapsa surah trefa shian kamen kshera kapsa muteres b'nei shekanus b'me'eha. All right, okay. Top of 116b. If the measure of the skin is enough to impart flavor to the milk, that cheese is prohibited in the case of a kosher animal that suckled milk from a treifa. The milk in its stomach is prohibited as the milk is from the treifa. If it was from a treifa that suckled milk from a kosher animal, the milk in its stomach is permitted as the milk is from the kosher animal. In both cases, the milk that an animal suckles has the status of the animal from which it was suckled and not that of the animal which suckled, because the milk is collected in its innards and is not an integral part of its body. And now we start the Talmud. The Gemara says, Atu keves goy lav nevelahi. Rav Huna hachov lekeach gedi min hagoy askinan v'chashinan shema yonek min hatrefo. The Mishnah makes reference to the stomach of the animal of a Gentile and that of an unslaughtered carcass. And I don't know what the laws are today. Again, I'm not reading this as a halachic, a law thing. It may be different today. I know that non-Jewish milk is, in many places, I think, is considered kosher. They call it chalav stam, like just regular milk, as long as they have a Jewish person watching over it. To give the I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. So I'm just reading this Talmud. It doesn't reflect my own opinion. Just as like a disclaimer. The Mishnah makes reference to the stomach of an animal of a Gentile and that of an unslaughtered carcass. The Gemara asks, is that to say that the stomach of an animal slaughtered by a Gentile is not itself a carcass? Why does the Tana of the Mishnah differentiate between them? Rav Huna said the Mishnah here is not referring to an animal slaughtered by a Gentile. Rather, we are dealing with a Jew who purchases a kid from a Gentile and slaughters it himself. Therefore, the kid is not prohibited as a carcass, but we are concerned that perhaps it's suckled from a treifa animal, and it is therefore prohibited. The Gemara asks, and are we concerned that perhaps it's suckled from an animal that is a treifa? But didn't we learn in a Braita, Tosefta 3:8, one may purchase eggs from Gentiles, and we are not concerned that perhaps the eggs came from a carcass, nor that they came from a treifa. The Gemara answers, indeed, there is no concern that the kid might have suckled from a treifa. Rather, say that we are concerned that perhaps it suckled from a non-kosher animal, and therefore the milk in its stomach is prohibited. The Gemara asks, and what is different about a treifa that we are not concerned that perhaps, excuse me, what is different about a non-kosher animal that we are concerned? What is different about a treifa that we are not concerned, and perhaps the animal suffers from it? And what is different about a non-kosher animal that we are concerned? The Gemara answers: a treifa animal is not common, whereas a non-kosher animal is common, and is therefore more likely that the animal suckled from one. Concerning Nichush. Aval de badlina minayu ki chazirin lahu yifarshin lahu villo lo gazru bahu rabanani ulzalam medir minayu yichazid lahu lo mfarshi lahu gazru be rabanan. The Gemara raises a difficulty. If suckling from a non-kosher animal is common, let us be concerned even with regard to our own animals. The Gemara responds: we Jews who separate ourselves from non-kosher animals, when we see them, we immediately distance our suckling animals from them. Therefore, the sages did not issue a decree with regard to animals purchased from Jews. But as for the Gentiles who do not separate themselves from non-kosher animals, when they see them, they do not distance their kosher animals from them. Consequently, the sages issued a decree with regard to animals purchased from a Gentile. And Shmuel said a different explanation of the Mishnah's language. The Tana of the Mishnah is teaching only one halacha. The congealed milk in the stomach of an animal slaughtered by a Gentile is like a carcass and is therefore prohibited. Umi amashmul hachi. Yomashmul pnei ma'oskul gvina sagoy. The Gemara asks, and did Shmuel actually say this? Does he hold that the milk in the stomach of an unslaughtered animal is prohibited as it were part of its body? But didn't Shmuel say, for what reason did the sages prohibit the cheese of Gentiles? It is because they curdle it with the skin of the stomach of the carcass. One may infer consequently that congealed milk, or rennet, from the stomach of a Gentile's animal is itself permitted and would not render the cheese prohibited if used as a coagulant. Our answer is this is difficult elsewhere, meaning in avoid is always. Wow. Okay. In Rosar 20b, Rabbi Yehoshua teaches two reasons for the prohibition on Gentile cheese. Initially, he held it to be prohibited because it is curdled using rennet from the stomach of an animal carcass. He later adopted the opinion that such rennet is permitted, and that cheese is prohibited because it is curdled using rennet from the stomach of calves used for idol worship, which is prohibited. Therefore, the Mishnah here, which states that the rennet in a carcass's stomach is itself prohibited, was taught here before Rabbi Yehoshua's retraction, while Shmuel's statement there that the sages prohibited Gentile cheese only because it is curdled with the skin of the stomach of a carcass was after Rabbi Yehoshua's retraction. Excuse me for just a moment while I plug this in. Need to keep our juice going. Meats and cheeses and juices. All right. The Mishnah teaches, in the case of a kosher animal that suckled milk from a treifa, the milk in its stomach is prohibited, whereas if a treifa suckled milk from a kosher animal, the milk in its stomach is permitted. The Gemara raises a difficulty, but doesn't the first clause of the Mishnah teach that congealed milk in the stomach of an animal, a Gentile, and of a carcass is prohibited? What is the difference between the milk found in the stomach of a treifa and in the second clause, and the milk found in the stomach of an unslaughtered carcass in the first clause? Rav Chizda said, in fact, milk found in the stomach of a carcass is not itself prohibited. The first clause of the Mishnah prohibits it only because one who partakes of it looks like one who eats carcasses, which is repulsive. By contrast, here with regard to a treifa, the consumption of milk found in its stomach is less repulsive, as here there is at least slaughter of the animal. Rava said to Rav Chizda, but is it not possible to claim a kal v'chomer that milk found in the stomach of a treifa should be prohibited, just as with regard to a carcass, which is so repulsive that even if you permit the milk in its stomach, people will not come to partake of the meat? You nevertheless said the milk is not permitted for consumption. Is it not all the more so with regard to a treifa that has been slaughtered, which is not as repulsive, such that if you permit the milk in its stomach, people might come to partake of it? Rather, Rabbi Yitzchak said, Rabbi Yochanan said, this question is not difficult. The first clause of the Mishnah here, which teaches that the milk in the stomach of a carcass is prohibited, was taught before Rabbi Yeshua's retraction cited above, whereas the latter clause there, that milk from the stomach of a treifa is permitted, was taught after Rabbi Yehoshua's retraction. A Mishnah can sometimes preserve an older ruling and then immediately teach a contradictory later ruling, because a Mishnah does not move from its place. Since the first clause of the Mishnah was already canonized, it was not removed, despite Rabbi Yehoshua's change of opinion. Kind of reminds me of like Achashverosh, the Purim story, when the edict of the Jews it was issued by Haman, right? So even after Haman was killed, and since the king had issued it, that's it. He can't take it back. You can issue a new one, but you cannot take back the old one. Ein la hashiv. You cannot bring it back. So it reminded me of that. Again, not my opinion, and it may not even reflect today's thing. So, Rav Chia bar Abba says that Rav Yochanan says one may curdle milk with rennet extracted from the stomach of carcasses, but one may not curdle with milk with rennet from the stomach of animals slaughtered by a Gentile. Rav Shimon bar Abba said before Rav Chia bar Abba, in accordance with whose opinion is this ruling? It is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, who said, a Gentile's presumed intention during the slaughter for Israel worship. Therefore, the prohibition against deriving benefit from an animal slaughter in idol worship applies to it, and this prohibition includes the contents of its stomach that are actually not part of its body. By contrast, the carcass is prohibited only for consumption, and the prohibition does not extend to the contents of its stomach. Amalei, Belekaman, Rabbi Chia bar Abba said to Rabbi Shimon bar Abba, rather, in accordance with whose opinion could this ruling be? Of course, it is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Kiyasav Shmuel bar Yitzchak, Amar Rav Yochanan Mamidin be'mekeves nevelo be'mekeves shchitas goy. Shelo lechosh to divrei Rabbi Eliezer. The Gemara relates when Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak came from Eretz Yisrael to Babylonia, he said that Rav Yochanan said, one may curdle milk both with rennet from the stomach of a carcass and with rennet from the stomach of an animal slaughtered by a Gentile, as there is no need to be concerned for the statement of Rabbi Eliezer. According to this account, Rabbi Yochanan does not maintain that a Gentile's presumed intention is for idol worship. חלב המכונס בפרשה ביעלמהו. The Gemara concludes, and the halacha is one may not curdle milk with the skin of the stomach of a carcass, but one may curdle milk with rennet from the stomach of a carcass and with rennet from the stomach of an animal slaughtered by a Gentile, but only if he's gentle. Okay, and with rennet with the stomach of a kosher animal that suckled from the treifa. And all the more so with the rennet from the stomach of a treifa animal that suckles from a kosher animal. What is the reason for these lenient rulings? The milk collected in the stomach is merely secretion and is not considered food that can be prohibited. And now you start a new Mishnah, the bottom line. The Mishnah says, Chomer b'chelev mibadam b'chomer b'dam b'chelev b'chomer b'chelev. Okay, so the Mishnah says, although animal fats and blood are similar in that they are both prohibited by Torah law and punishable by karet, there are elements more stringent in the prohibition of fat than in that of blood. And likewise, there are elements more stringent in the prohibition of blood than in that of fat. The elements more stringent in the prohibition of fat are the following. The first is that with regard to fat of an offering, we'll stop here.